Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And breaking news story today involves the case of Breonna Taylor. And if you are not familiar with the Breonna Taylor case, she is a 26-year-old woman who was killed back in March when police entered her apartment on a no-knock warrant, and her boyfriend fired at the police believing that they were intruders, and the police in return opened fire on them, and she was killed in the incident, an innocent bystander, in what later turned out to be police were at the wrong place to begin with, because the person that they were looking for was a former boyfriend of Breonna Taylor's, and he no longer lived or had been at that apartment, but they targeted it because they said that he had received mail there, and she had a car that was registered in his name. And so that's how they were able to secure the search warrant. And there's a lot more to this case, and I told you guys in the Naomi Osaka video that I did the other night that I really hope you guys will check out, that there is a lot of complexities to this story, and that Breonna's case has actually taken on a life of its own. And I am going to do a more in-depth video on this case because there's just so many nuances to it. But today, the City of Louisville, Kentucky, has agreed to pay $12 million to the family of Breonna Taylor. And this, according to Benjamin Crump, who is the civil rights attorney. I guess he's like the modern day Al Sharpton. Whenever these police shootings take place, like he's Johnny on the spot, leading the way. So I think he's kind of like taking the helm from Reverend Al Sharpton. And so he was part of the press conference and was basically gloating about the fact that $12 million is the largest settlement for a black person killed by police, and that it may be the largest settlement by police in history, but he's checking to get the facts on that. And for me, that is so irrelevant and so unimportant in the full scheme of things, because whether it's $12 million or $12 billion, it is not going to bring Breonna Taylor back, and it is not going to soothe her parents and her family, the loss that they have experienced and all the trauma that has taken place. And more importantly, when it's easy for police to settle in these cases because it's our dollars that's paying these settlements, and it's our tax dollars, that fund the insurance policies and whatever, that this money is going to come from. And what we, the people, want is changes in the justice system, changes in police, policing across America, not just in cities where these incidents take place. And so part of the settlement also included some changes that are supposed to take place, and I'll get to that in a second. So Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher is expected to announce the settlement later today, which they did. They just finished up a press conference, in a joint press conference with the Taylor family's attorneys. And speaking on News Radio 840 WHAS on Tuesday morning, Fisher declined to comment on the settlement, saying, "I don't have anything to announce on at this time," but we know that that was not the truth, because they did actually release the details of the settlement. So Taylor's family sued the city after Louisville Metro police officers broke down the door to Taylor's apartment and fatally shot her while executing a late-night no-knock warrant in a narcotics investigation on March 13th. So police believed, according to their account, they believed that Taylor was home alone when she was in fact accompanied by her boyfriend, who was legally armed. That miscalculation, along with the decision to press forward with a high-risk forced entry raid under questionable circumstances contributed to the deadly outcome. So Taylor's boyfriend, who said he believed the home was being broken into, shot and injured an officer, and police in turn killed Taylor in the return fire. The officers were not wearing body cameras, according to police, but I think it has later came out that one of them may not have been wearing a body camera, but may have been wearing some type of recording device. And so there's more things that are coming out as this goes on. And then also keep in mind that this case didn't get notoriety back in March when it first happened. It only gained traction when the Ahmaud Arbery case came to light, and even that one was delayed by a month or two. And so once people started looking at the Ahmaud Arbery case, then people came forward and said, well, hey, this happened to Breonna Taylor in Louisville, and we need to be protesting this as well. And so Until Freedom, a social justice organization that has protested in Louisville, released a statement Tuesday reacting to the reported city settlement. And it says, quote, "No amount of money will bring back Breonna Taylor," end quote. "We see this settlement as the bare minimum you can do for a grieving mother. The city isn't doing her any favors. True justice is not served with cash settlements. We need these involved in her murder to be arrested and charged. We need accountability. We need justice." And that was the second part of their quote. So the Louisville Metro Police Department also declined comment, and the police union did not immediately respond to a request for comments. Aguilar confirmed the settlement on Tuesday morning, saying, quote, "The city's response in this case has been delayed and it's been frustrating, but the fact that they've been willing to sit down and talk significant reform was a step in the right direction and hopefully a turning point." And Aguilar is the attorney. So Ben Crump is like the spokesperson that gets out on the media and keeps things alive, but the actual family attorney when it comes to negotiating the settlement is this Aguilar guy. And so none of the three officers involved in the raid have been charged with the crime. One officer, Brett Hankinson, was fired in late June for wantonly and blindly firing 10 rounds into Breonna's apartment. Then interim Louisville Police Chief Robert Schroeder wrote in the disciplinary action, "A fatal police shooting has led to months of protests in Louisville and across the country under the Black Lives Matter movement against anti-Black racism and police violence. Since her death, the police chief was fired in June after a separate police shooting, and the Louisville City Council passed Breonna's law, which banned no-knock search warrant." And Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who happens to be Black himself, the first Black person to hold the post and unfortunately a Republican, was made a special prosecutor in the case earlier this year, and the FBI has opened an investigation as well. A grand jury has been impaneled to investigate the shooting, though an announcement has not been made about those proceedings or when they will be available, because actually the grand jury will be hearing multiple cases, and the Breonna Taylor case is one of them. And so Cameron is expected to announce a charging decision soon, though he has declined to provide a specific timeline, saying, quote, "My office is continually asked about a timeline regarding the investigation into the death of Miss Breonna Taylor. An investigation, if done properly, cannot follow a specific timeline." And he posted that in a tweet last week. In addition to the $12 million settlement, the other things that are includes mandating officers must approve search warrants, incentives for officers to live in the city, improve relationships with community, social workers to help with mental health calls, a commitment to increase drug and alcohol testing of officers involved in any shooting, and encouraging officers to perform at least 2 paid hours a week of community service in the communities they serve. Now, those are some good changes, that are going to come out of this. Not sure about, wanting police officers to live in neighborhoods that are considered low income. I know in several cities, including the one I live in, there are housing credits for police officers to live in the city, where they work at. And I know over in Tampa, at one point about 20 years ago, they had implemented a rule that in order to be a police officer, firefighter, any type of public service role, you had to live within the Tampa city limits. Not sure if that is still a thing, but it is good that police live in the communities where they work, where they can better understand the city, understand the residents, understand that, how a person may react living in this neighborhood is not the same as how a person may react to policing in another neighborhood. I wish this also included, some reforms as far as police sensitivity training, community. I see that, the 2 hours of paid community service, but maybe the police can actually create community programs that allow them to interact with the community so that they can get to know people. Here where I live, they have part of the Barack Obama's initiative, My Brother's Sister's Keeper, and it's called Not My Son. And it was a program that I really had an issue with in the beginning, but now that I better understand what they're trying to do, I like it a little bit more, although I don't believe that it actually reaches the target audience that it's supposed to reach. But in any event, the way it's designed is for police to go into low-income communities, get to know, the kids in the community, do, different type of toy drives, back to school drives. They go, if they see some kids playing basketball, they get out the car and go talk to them and that type of thing. But I believe that program, can do a little bit more than the photo ops that I see every now and then. But my biggest issue is that the people who I know personally, whose sons are a part of that program, who are going to make sure that whatever these police officers are supposed to be teaching, their parents were already going to make sure that those kids understood those things, understand the laws, understand how to interact with police. And so I'm not sure that they're actually reaching their target audience. But everything is a good step to getting to where we need to be. But overall, no matter what takes place, even with the no-knock search warrant being banned in Louisville, that's a great thing, but they need to be banned around the country. So even if the grand jury comes back and decides to press charges against the officers in the Breonna Taylor case, there is no guarantee that there will be a conviction. There was a similar case to the Breonna Taylor's case involving a 7-year-old girl from Detroit by the name of Aiyana Jones. And in that case, the police officer was charged with her murder and he went on trial. There was a hung jury or a mistrial. They tried him again, same result. And then instead of trying it for a third time, they realized that a jury was not going to find this particular officer guilty. And so they decided to drop the charges against him. And the reason it is going to be so hard to prosecute a case like this is, as heinous as it is, no-knock search warrants are legal. And so what the jury has to determine is, did the officers not follow protocol for a no-knock warrant? Was the officer negligent when they opened fire? Did the officer reasonably fear for their life when they did this no-knock and gunfire started coming at them? And that is why it's going to be hard to prosecute this case, even if charges are filed in it. And so maybe the current climate has changed and they might be able to get a guilty verdict, but it would be very hard to prosecute these cases And that is why there needs to be a nationwide ban on no-knock warrants to make them illegal altogether. And, as I was talking about the little girl who this happened to in Detroit, there was another case, which is a juxtaposition of what's going on. There's a guy in Texas who, was awakened to the police climbing through his window. He reached for his gun, shot at the police, and I can't remember if he killed the police or if the police was injured, but in any event, he was arrested and charged with either capital attempted murder or capital murder of a police officer. And this happened about 6 years ago, and this man has been sitting in a Texas jail for 6 years awaiting trial because he can't afford the $40 million bail that was assessed against him. And personally, just from following the case, I think they know they don't have a case. And so they're going to make him serve time, for shooting at those police, whether it's sitting in jail awaiting trial or him actually going to trial and a jury finding him guilty. And the biggest issue with all of this is that, police can enter your house legally on a no-knock warrant and kill you and get away with it. But a citizen, a tax-paying citizen that's paying the police salary, if they fire back at the police and shoot the police or kill the police, they don't get that courtesy. They are arrested, they're charged with murder, and they most likely will be sent to prison. A couple of cases that I've read, the person did get off, but just the thought that police can come into your house unannounced and kill you and have no consequences. But if you kill a police officer breaking into your house, you're not protected by the law. You have to, spend money, spend time, can spend the rest of your life in prison. And for me, that doesn't seem fair. So that's it for me. Just want to bring this information. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.